Hello everybody, this is Reaper here at Travel Gaming, and today I'm bringing you another League of Legends guide on Alistar the Minotaur. Sorry we haven't got so many guides out recently. My brother's been kind of busy with a lot of his stuff at school and some work, and I've been really busy with work and traveling and stuff like that, and so we're hopefully a lot of that's settled and we'll be able to get several more guides out here really soon. So off of that, on to Alistar. This is going to be a basic top lane guide. We're going to be going over his abilities, his masteries, runes, and an item build for him. And of course, I'm going to have some game footage for you, a little bit more game footage than normally I put in, because I want to show you the fundamentals of Alistar. A few things on him real quick before we get into his abilities and stuff like that. He is a hybrid champion in the top lane. He is naturally tanky and a support champion. You don't have to build that for him to be that naturally tanky, but you are going to be building him more tanky than anything, unless you're getting fed and your tank doesn't need, or your team doesn't need a tank. But he has AD potential, AP, tank, and support, so all four of those, and he is excellent at it. I love playing Alistar in the top lane. His laning phase is not the best. You're not necessarily going to really get bullied, but you're not going to really push the lane a whole lot unless you get lucky and the guy you're playing doesn't know what the hell he's doing, never's played against Alistar in the top lane, or you get, a few good strikes in and time your abilities perfectly and you get some good hits in. You're not going to be the carrier of the team necessarily unless you get fed early on, which can happen, but Alistar's shining moments are in the end game, because his team fight capabilities, he can just control a team fight. He can initiate the fight by knocking out the person you don't want in there, like the tank or the someone who's going to disrupt the whole team fight with AoE abilities, and then he can use his knock up, which we'll talk about in his abilities, to knock up and stun everybody else who's in there, so y'all can burn down the AD or the AP carry really quickly. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with his abilities. Alright, so starting off with Trample, his passive. Each time Alistar casts a spell, he tramples nearby units and turrets for a few seconds, dealing damage to units he walks over. This isn't literally him walking over the unit, it's an AoE passive basically. So anytime you do a spell, any spell, you're going to be doing damage to nearby minions, turrets, or any champions, of course. Sorry. This just helps you clear out minion waves, and it is also good in the team fights for you just to do extra AoE magic damage. Alright, Pulverize. Alistar smashes the ground, dealing damage to all nearby enemies and tossing them into the air. On landing, enemies are stunned, and I believe it's about a half a second stun. They're knocked up into the air for 1 second and stunned for half a second. But it's an incredible move in the team fight. This is where his CC allows him to control team fights. He's going to use his W to get in there, and Pulverize will knock up the entire team around him. So this is actually going to be the first move you max out. Your first point is actually going to go into your headbutt though. Alistar rams a target with his head, dealing damage and knocking the target back. So if you can position this correctly, you can knock an enemy champion, like preferably the AD carry or the AP champion, enemy champion, back into your team so y'all can burn them down, or just knock them into a wall to stun them, or knock out the tank out of the group so you don't have any of your teammates who don't know how to target taking on the enemy tank, which doesn't do anything, as we all know, but it also allows you to control and mitigate the team, the enemy team. E. Triumphant Roar. Alistar lets out a commanding war cry, restoring health to himself and nearby friendly units for half the amount. Can be cast more often if nearby enemies are dying. So if a nearby enemy dies, the cooldown is going to be reduced on this. But it gives you a decent little amount of health. Nothing really big and special. So this is going to be the last thing that you actually level up, I'm sorry. But remember, you can use this if all your other abilities are on cooldown. You can use this for your trample, your passive, to kick off. Alright, Unbreakable Will, the ultimate. Alistar lets out a wild roar, gaining bonus damage, removing all crowd control effects on himself, and reducing incoming physical and magical damage for the duration. Okay, so you will remove all crowd controlling effects. So if you get stunned, you get slowed, you get snared, anything, it's going to remove it. You're going to gain additional magic and attack damage, and then you're going to have reduced physical and magical damage for the duration. So this is just an incredible ultimate, especially since you're going to be the one in the middle of the fight controlling the fight. So when enemy champions are targeting you to knock you down, alright, whatever. So okay, W is going to be your first point, but you're going to max out Q first, max out W second, E last, and of course your ultimate when on your 6, 11, and oh hell, what is it, 16. So follow that order. I mean, you can max out W first if you want to, but I like to do more damage with Pulverize because I feel that it affects better, especially in the laning phase. Okay, so since we're done with the abilities, let's go ahead and jump over into the Masteries real quick. In his Masteries, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but there's 2 different Mastery sets I like to use with Ali, depending on what the team is needing, and you're picking in your the lobby in the beginning of the game, or before the game starts, and you're picking your champions and stuff. You're going to choose, are you going to be a hybrid, are you going to be a carry, are you going to need to do a lot of damage, or are you going to need to be a tank? You don't have to worry about support in the top lane because you're naturally going to be that anyways, but with his hybrid choice of Masteries, I like to use the 24 in offense and 6 in utility. I don't really worry about a whole lot of defense. I use that in my runes, which I'll get to later, and of course in my items. So I'm going to try and build up some AP and some attack damage. So sorcery, points in mental force for the ability power at the end game, brute force for attack damage at the end game, expose weakness, spell weaving, and this is going to help you with your team fights and stuff. You do spell damage, it increases your whole team's damage towards that champion, I'm sorry, and stuff of that nature. Martial Mastery, Arcane Mastery, Warlord, Archmage, Devastating Strikes, and Havoc. And that's just going to increase all your attack damage and your ability power, your ability damage, along with all that. So the utilities, we're going to go with movement, increased movement speed, so you can chase those champions down or get into position a little bit quicker for doing your headbutt and stuff of that nature. And then meditation, this is going to help you out in the beginning of the game to give you increased mana regain, because you are pretty mana hungry in the beginning of the game. Now with the tank, I'll generally do this. Now I'll tweak it every once in a while, but as a tank, I'll go with 20 in defense, 6 in utility, and 4 in offense, so we can get that cooldown reduction with the sorcery. And then in the defense, we have block, recovery, enchanted armor, veteran scars, unyielding, juggernaut, 2 points in hardiness, 2 points in resistance, 1 point in your swiftness, which this is gonna help you out a little bit, but I just put an extra point in it to get down here to the legendary guardian, and you put all 4 points in that. Don't worry about the tenacious, because your ultimate is gonna take all the crowd control effects off you, like we already talked about. And then of course your fleet of foot and your meditation for that lane phase part of the game. Okay, let's go ahead and jump over into his runes really quick. Alright, so in his runes, this is generally how I will build the rune page for Alistar. The greater quintessence of ability power all the way around, greater mark of magic penetration all the way around, greater seal of armor for that tankiness, and then the greater glyph of magic resist for that in-game against the AP champions. This is generally how I build it, going tanky with the runes. With the Masteries, I'll build a little AP, and with my items, I will build AP if I need to. You can change this out if you want to. The glyphs, you can put some AP in there if you want, but with the quintessence and the magic penetration, the quintessence of ability power, and the magic penetration, this is going to give you the ability power you need from your runes. So you can have be a little more tanky on the glyphs and on the seals. Of course, you can change your seals out with some health, maybe, for the end game to help you out there. And then, of course, the glyphs you can change out with ability power, like I said earlier. But this is generally how I go. I know a lot of people like to use a rune page for several different champions, so this will help you do that, along with benefiting Alistar too. So let's go ahead and jump over into the item builds really quick. Guys, this with the item build, I'm gonna try and go through this pretty quickly, so try to keep up. I've recorded this thing three times, and it's taking me like 15 minutes each time, and I'm gonna be a little tongue-tied, so just please bear with me. Starting items, I generally go with the Doran's Ring for the health, ability power, and the mana regen, because you're gonna be mana hungry in the beginning, and it does give you some health, and then you can get a health pot and a mana pot. If you go with the Doran's Shield, which you can, you're only gonna be able to get one pot, and this is gonna help you with some health and blocking some basic attack damage from the champions, and then your warding totem, of course. First recall back, my core build, my first item is going to be a Trinity Force. So my first recall is going to be a Sheen with the mana and ability power, because you are mana hungry in the beginning. Or you can go with the Phage if you want to, but I generally go with the Sheen. And then the boots, of course. Now my core build, the reason I put this as the core build is because you're going to be using about 3 of these items in every single game. It might not be all 3 every single time, but it's going to be 3 of these particular ones, and then you're going to change the other ones out because each different game is situational. So the first item is Trinity Force to build up fully. Some people may disagree, and that's okay. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm fully right. This is generally just how I build it. So Trinity Force first. Then, depending on who your enemy champion is in the top lane in the laning phase, you're going to go either armor or magic resist, because you're going to be building a little tanky in the beginning. You are going to have some tanky items with Alistar. Even if you are going full AP, you're not technically going full AP because you need to be a little tanky. And of course, depending on your team, you might need to be full tank, and you can still do a lot of damage at being full tank with Alistar. So the Spirit Visage for magic resist, Randuin's Omen for armor, your Rabadon's Death Cap for increased ability power, a large amount of ability power, and it increases all of your ability power by 30% with its passive. And then your Zonya's Hourglass to give you that armor and ability power, and of course, if you're getting burned down really fast, you can pop it, and while they're attacking the other champions, you'll be okay for a minute, and then you can come back in and, you know, pursue the fight. Or maybe give your team time to get out of there. So, the boots, Mercury's Treads generally is probably going to be the one you go with majority of the time. Your ultimate is going to get you out of CCs that are on you at the time. Your Mercury's Treads, while you're waiting on the cooldown, are going to help you with decreasing the amount of time of all CC. And then of course, if you are being fed and you're just wanting to bulldoze everybody, your Sorcerer's Shoes will give you that magic penetration to help out with your AP. And of course, I'm sorry, you can get the Ninja Tabby if you're needing to build a lot more armor. So your situational items, I'm going to go through these really quickly. You can see them and you can look them up and read a little bit more about them. And if you want to, we can discuss a little more in the comments later about them. But your AD situational, you get your Mercurial Scimitar for your attack damage and magic resist, and it also removes all debuffs. Your Frozen Mallet gives you a lot of health, some damage, and it each basic attack decreases the movement speed of enemy champions. Maul Mortis gives you increased attacks, damage, and magic resist, and it also does extra damage for the more health you're missing, and it'll give you a magic shield, but when you get below 30% health. Only blocks magic, by the way. Hextech Gunblade gives you attack damage, ability power, and lifesteal. This is a hybrid item, and its active deals additional attack damage. Deals damage plus 40% of your ability power as magic damage, and reduces the enemy champion's movement speed by 40%. Okay, on your armor situational items, your Sunfire Cape, this is going to give you health and armor, and this is also going to help you out with your Trample passive by doing AoE damage to enemies around you at all times. Your Iceborne Gauntlet is going to give you a lot of mana, armor, ability power, and cooldown reduction, but it also, once you use an ability, your next basic attack is going to do increased damage and do an AoE slow. Your Frozen Heart, this is going to be kind of a support item. It's going to benefit your whole team really, but it's going to give you a lot of armor, mana, and a lot of cooldown reduction, and it has an aura that reduces all enemy champions' attack speed around you. Your Guardian Angel is going to give you increased armor and magic resist, and this is kind of a late game item. If you have a full build and you haven't used Guardian Angel, you might trade something in for it so you can stay in the fight a little bit longer. Once you're killed, this pops, and after 4 seconds you'll come back with 30% health and mana. Okay, your AP situational items. Deathfire Grasp gives you a lot of ability power and some cooldown reduction, but its active deals 15% of target champion's maximum health and magic damage. So this is going to help you out maybe in taking down the tank a little bit faster, or burning down the ADC really quickly if you can get to him in the back. Lich Bane gives you ability power, mana, and movement speed, and after using an ability, it gives you your next basic attack will deal 75% basic attack damage, base AD, and then plus 50% ability power. And then your Ryla's whatever Crystal Scepter is going to give you quite a bit of health, ability power, and then dealing spell damage slows the target movement speed by 35% for 1 second. So using your abilities like your W or your Q, not only is it and 15% for multi-target and damage over time spells. Shoot, what was I looking at? Okay, whatever. Your spell damage is going to slow them for 1.5 seconds. Your Leandra's Torment going to give you some ability power and some health. It's going to give you some magic penetration and dealing spell damage. This damage bonus damage is doubled against movement impaired units and capped at 100 per second for monsters. Why the hell did I read that? It gives an AoE over time. Sorry, you can read it later. Okay, the Banshee's Veil for magic resist. You're going to have increased health, magic resist, and it's also going to grant you a shield that blocks any incoming enemy ability, but it has a 40% cooldown. So this can block a very big spell against you, or it can block a very little one, and then they can burn you down after that. It's a good item to have because it just helps you out all the time. Your Locket of the Iron Solari is going to give you increased health. This is a support item because it's not only going to give you some magic resist and cooldown reduction, it's going to give your whole team some magic resist and some health regen. But your active can grant a shield to nearby allies for 5 seconds that absorbs up to 50 plus 10 per level damage, so you can get up to 180 in the end game. Your Abyssal Scepter is going to give you some ability power and magic resist, and it also reduces the magic resist of nearby enemies by 20. So this is going to also be a little bit of a support item. I like to use this if the enemy team is building a lot of magic resist, so it'll help you and your fellow AP champion out in dealing damage to the entire team. Okay, so that's pretty much going to do it up for the items. If you have any questions for scenarios and stuff like that, go ahead and leave it in the comment below. I'll get back with you as ASAP on it. Also, if there's some items I left out, which I hope there's really not, but there might be an item or two, go ahead and mention it in the comments below and we'll talk about it. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the game footage. Now in the game footage you might see that my build might not be exactly, of course, like my core. It just depends on your team how it's going. I think I built a lot of armor in the game footage that I show you, but you know, watch the footage. I wanted to show you a lot of how he reacts in team fights and what he can do also while he's by himself. So here's the game footage, and I'll see y'all at the end of the video. Alright guys, so that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this guide. Just remember on your abilities, first point goes into W, but max out Q first, then W, E last, and of course your ultimate when you get the chance. Summoner spells really quick, I didn't go over that before, but Flash, of course, and you can either take Ignite or Teleport. Most of the time you're going to take Teleport because you're in the top lane and you want to be able to get down to that bottom lane or the mid lane when a lot of the team fights are starting to happen. But your Ignite will help you out in the beginning of the game. It doesn't generally help you out in the end game unless in the picking phase you see that you're going against a champion that has a lot of lifesteal and stuff of that nature, like Nasus or Fiddlesticks or something like that. You might take Ignite anyways so that you can pop that on them to reduce that lifesteal. So anyways, just remember that if the laning phase isn't going your way, don't worry about it. Just play a little passive, maybe farm as much as you can. Sometimes you might not even be able to farm too much, but your shining moments are in the end game. You can control the team fights. If you're not wanting to do the team fights, if you're wanting to do the OP AD, get 30 kills in the game, don't go with Alistar. Alistar's your tank, support, AD, AP champion. So utilize him correctly and you'll have a hell of a game. He's a monster in the end game. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this, guys. Again, if y'all have any questions, comments, leave it in the comment section below. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to have a lot more guides coming out in the future, and we have a lot of guides that y'all can check out right now. Thank you to our subscribers that we do have, even though we're few right now. Hopefully one day we'll be many. And we'll see y'all in the next guide. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.